Sure. Thank you very much, Savila, for your help. And thank you to be back during the break. You are all thirsty, eh? You want to learn more and more, and I want to learn more and more. Okay, so then we'll have some slides today. We try to debate again with the Buddhist psychology. Okay, so let's see. Let's see what we have in the design. So, as you know, mind is so important because when we study Buddhism, you know, everything turns around mind. I guess if we study any kind of spiritual tradition, yeah? So, because, you know, like if we speak about the Four Noble Truths, what do we speak about, for instance?
Sorry, what was the question? Can you repeat that?
What are the Four Noble Truths, for instance, eh, Malavila?
The Four Noble Truths. Suffering.
You can see the noble truth number one, noble truth number two, noble truth number three, and noble truth number four. Easy, no?
All composite things are impermanent.
Yeah, so these will be the
Sorry.
four, yeah, the four seals, yeah, maybe you have in mind, Shavila, yeah?
Oh,
Seals.
the Four Noble Truths. Truth of suffering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then,
Cause of suffering.
yes. Then,
Cessation of suffering.
yes. Then,
And then the truth of path leading to the cessation of suffering.
yes, wonderful. Yeah? We can say true sufferings, true origins, true cessations, and true path. And when we speak about the true origins, we speak about karma and klesha, yeah? Karma and afflictions. So karma, the nature of karma is the mental factor intention. So that's mind. That's a kind of mind. And klesha or afflictions, we speak about mental factors as well, yeah? So we speak about mind, how we can uh, discipline our mind. Yeah, that's very important. Okay, so that's why it's important to know what is mind. And here we have a mention done by His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the foundation of Buddhist practice to determine what? Yes, if full awakening is possible, to know what to practice and abandon in order to attain awakening, and to discern the ultimate nature of all phenomena. We need to be able to test various claims and determine if they are accurate and non-deceptive. Yeah? We need to know, yeah, we need to have a valid cognition, yeah, of reality and so on. And so that's why it's so important to study Buddhist psychology. Yeah? Okay, so you already know the map, yeah, the traditional map. We have selfless, the broadest category, we could say, and we have non-existent and existent. And among existent, we have permanent and impermanent. And impermanent phenomena are divided into three: form, consciousness or cognition, and non-associated compositional phenomena. So our main point here is to study the mind, yeah? So one of the main divisions of impermanent phenomena, so consciousness or cognition, yeah? So one important thing said by Acharya Dharmakirti in the Pramanavartika, he would say, Vishaya Grahanam Dharmo Vijnanasya, yeah? In Tibetan, yeah? So he says that the apprehending an object is the defining characteristic of consciousness. You can see that in recognizing reality. Yeah? And you can have another way to translate that in omniscience and the rhetoric of reason. Yeah? Apprehending an object is a quality of awareness. Yeah, so that's we can say that the only phenomenon in the universe able to know things is awareness, is mind or consciousness. Yeah, so we could say so. But of course, because the person is one substance or one entity with the mind, when the mind knows, the person knows. Do you agree with that? Yeah, we can say that we are learning because our mind is learning. Yeah, okay. Very good. So we have, like, for instance, in that beautiful book, Mind in Tibetan Buddhism, commented by Latirin Boche, the definition of consciousness. Yeah. Sejinripa. Yeah, clear and knowing. Yeah, that's the shortest way to define that. So of course you can have different ways to translate that. Yeah. Yeah, you could say it is clear, its entity is clear, and it is an agent that knows. You could say so as well, yeah? So that's a way to translate here. Clear and knowing, yeah? Okay, okay. Very good. So
Can I
we could
ask a
say,
question, Christophe?
yes, yes, please.
Just a quick question. Is this are we differentiating between consciousness and mind, or are we using it interchangeably?
Yes, that's exactly the point of the other slides.
Okay.
Yeah, we have awareness, we have mind, we have so many different ways to express that. So for instance, we have nowhere, yeah, you have as well, you have cognition, mati or buddhi in Sanskrit, yeah, but in Tibetan it's always lo. Then you have also cognition, for instance, yeah, samvedana in Sanskrit or samviti in Sanskrit as well, yeah, rigpa in Tibetan. And you have awareness as well, yeah, awareness, yeah, jnana or shiva. So those are the broadest ways to describe clear and knowing. Yeah. So among that, you can have mental factors and you have main minds as well. Yeah. So those are all awarenesses. So among awareness, you have mind, for instance, yeah, chitta or sem in Tibetan. Consciousness as well, vijnana or namshe. And you have mental, manas or yi in Tibetan. Yeah? Okay, so those are more specific. We usually speak about main minds. You know, main minds. We have 6 types of minds. Do you know? Do you know which one? Which ones? Yeah. It follows. You can posit the 6 types of minds that you have.
Eye consciousness,
Yes. Then
then ear
ear
consciousness,
consciousness. Yes. Then
yeah, uh, olfactory,
yes. Then
olfactory, tactile,
yes. And
taste consciousness,
yes. Very good.
and mind, mental.
Yeah, mental consciousness. Very good. Yes. So we can say that generally speaking, we have 6 types of consciousness. We could say after the coffee in the morning, before, I'm not sure, but after the coffee in the morning, we have 6 types of consciousness. Yeah. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, and body consciousness, yeah, we could say. And mental consciousness, yeah. Okay, so those are main minds, yeah, compared to mental factors. Yeah, so but mental factors and main minds are all knowers or awareness. They belong to the category of awareness. They are all clear and knowing. Yeah, is that clear for everyone? Okay, very good, very good. So the terminology sometimes can be confusing because in some texts you can find consciousness, some other texts you have, for instance, awareness. But that should be okay if you are clear about the definitions, yeah? Okay, so awareness is the broadest category. And within awareness, you have mind, for instance, yeah, main mind, yeah? Okay. And awareness is a knower as well. Sometimes in some books, you can find knower, yeah? Okay. And cognition as well, yeah? Cognition, awareness, knower, they are all equivalent. Lo, Rigpa, Sheva in Tibetan, they are all equivalent. Okay, and you have mind, mind as like a main mind, yeah, which is a type of awareness. Okay, you can say consciousness as well. Like we tend to say a main consciousness, but we can just say consciousness, yeah. Okay, and we have also mental, yeah, manas or yi in Tibetan, yeah. Okay, so mind refers generally speaking to main mind, yeah. Okay, then you have mental factors. Okay, so we'll try to study all of that slowly, step by step, and try to debate about that, yeah. Okay, so we can say it follows. Yes, please. Hallelujah.
You put mental factor outside of main mind
Yes.
because they're contradictory. Is that why you
Yeah,
like that? Okay.
exactly. They are contradictory. If we compare main minds and mental factors, they are necessarily contradictory. Yeah.
Can you give an example
Okay.
of a mental factor?
Yes. For instance, we could say, like, for instance, the mental factor of feeling, yeah, or intention, yeah, or can we say discrimination or compassion, ignorance, yeah. So many mental sleep as well, yeah.
Okay, thank
We
you.
have many mental factors, yeah. Okay, very good. So it follows that if it is a mental factor, it's necessarily clear knowing.
Accept,
Yes, it is clear knowing because,
because it is an awareness.
yes, it follows that if it is an awareness, it's necessarily clear knowing.
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, and it follows that the main mind is also clear and knowing.
Accept.
Yes, because the main mind is an awareness.
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Yes. So then after we will try to debate, like for instance, the mental factor ignorance. It follows it is clear knowing.
Accept.
Okay, so it follows that the subject ignorance is knowing.
Accept.
Yes, it is knowing because
Because it is an awareness.
yes, exactly. Yeah. So yes, the mental factor ignorance, for instance, yeah, of course we will debate that, but for some masters in the Nalanda tradition, ignorance is just unknowing. Yeah, it's just like a mirror in the dark, for instance. It's not reflecting anything. Yeah. And for other masters, yeah, like higher masters in one sense, or we can say that masters that have some kind of higher view, they would say that ignorance is a kind of distorting mirror. It knows, but in a wrong way. Yeah. So it knows, but in a wrong way. So because it is clear and knowing, it has to be an awareness. Yeah. Yeah. Is that okay for everyone? Okay.
Can you give me
Okay. Very good.
of the main mind when the mental factor is, let's say, compassion?
Sorry, Chaviji, the beginning of your sentence, I could not hear.
Sorry. So I'm asking, can you give us an example of the main mind while there's mental factor of compassion?
Yes. Yeah, for instance, what kind of main mind would it be? Can we have a compassion in an I consciousness? No, says Tamamola. It follows that an I consciousness cannot be compassionate.
But main mind is not consciousness, right?
Yes, main mind means consciousness, a main consciousness, yeah. So what kind of consciousness could be compassionate?
Mental consciousness.
Mental.
Yes, the mental consciousness, yeah. Yeah,
Okay, so
compassion.
that could be any of the 6 consciousnesses?
Yes, it has to be one of the 6 types of consciousness, and it has to be the mental one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you know when we meditate, what kind of consciousness tries to meditate?
Mental.
Yes, the mental consciousness can meditate. The eye consciousness, the ear consciousness cannot meditate. So we can cultivate compassion, yeah, in our mental consciousness. Yeah? So compassion and the mental consciousness would be one substance, yeah, but they are still contradictory. Yeah, they are still contradictory, like the color of the cup and the cup. They are one substance or one entity, we could say, but still they are contradictory. Yeah? So the mental
Okay.
factor, compassion, and the mental consciousness, they are both one entity or one substance, but still contradictory.
Okay.
Uh,
And
yes,
mental, like,
yeah,
sorry,
yes,
and
Shana.
mental factor can only be the mental consciousness.
That would mean that an eye consciousness, for instance, has no feeling.
Sorry?
It would follow that an eye consciousness has no feeling, cannot feel any object.
Why?
So
I
it
mean,
follows.
yes, accept.
Okay. Okay. So it follows that an eye consciousness cannot discriminate, cannot identify the red color of the cup.
Accept.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The mind consciousness that would?
Sorry.
Wouldn't that be the mental consciousness that discerns?
Ah, okay. So it would mean that the eye consciousness cannot know the red color.
The eye consciousness sees the red color.
Ah,
Okay,
okay.
there's a consciousness, so it cognizes. Okay.
Yes, it recognizes and it identifies because there are 5 omnipresent mental factors, yeah? Feeling, discrimination,
Yeah.
contact, intention, and attention, we could say, or mental application, yeah? Attention, yeah? So those mental factors are omnipresent. If they are not there, then we could not speak of any eye consciousness, ear consciousness, and so on, yeah? So for instance, the mental factor of feeling allows any consciousness to apprehend or to experiment its object. Yeah. So there are some mental factors, they are always in any kind of consciousness. Like the mental factor of feeling. Feeling is always there in any kind of consciousness because it allows the consciousness to experiment its object. Yeah.
Okay.
And identification or discrimination as well. Yeah. It can be conceptual and it can be non-conceptual as well. Yeah. So the fact that the eye consciousness is able to distinguish the red color and the wall, for instance, the color of the wall here, you have the red color of the cup and the yellowish color of the wall. The eye consciousness is able to distinguish them. So that's the
Yeah.
mental fact identification or discrimination. And in this case, in the case of the eye consciousness, is not conceptual. Yeah?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. So some mental factors can be one substance only with the mental consciousness, like the afflictions, or like some virtuous mental factors like compassion, faith, and so on. Yeah. They cannot be in the eye consciousness or any sensory consciousness. Yeah? Yes, Palavila?
Sleep is you mentioned as an example of mental factor. But when you go into deep sleep, there is no mind and there's
Oh,
no sensory objects.
okay. So it follows that during deep sleep, the continuum of mind is cut.
I mean, if you say coma or unconscious, or like when somebody's sedated and you go into a deep sleep, your autonomous system is working, but your mind has no cognition of anything.
Yes. Okay. So there is a mind, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So the continuum of mind is not cut even during coma or deep sleep, yeah?
But
Okay,
not
so we have,
always, no?
yes, we can say that there is a continuum of consciousness. We could say a subtle type of mental consciousness, yeah?
Okay.
Okay, and this consciousness could know just some kind of blank state.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of, it seems to be unknowing, but because it is clear unknowing, it has to know something. Yeah,
It
has to,
knows that it has no feeling or no emotion. The continuum, I guess that's the absence of experience is still, because when you wake up, you realize, oh, I just woke up from anesthesia or something.
yes, exactly. So we can say that there is a feeling, some kind of neutral feeling, because feeling is an omnipresent mental factor, so it has to be there anyway. But it could be neutral in that case, yeah?
Okay.
So yeah, we could have some kind of blank state of mind, which knows just a type of vacuum, just, kind of blankness. Yeah. Okay. So it means that it has an object anyway. If it's a subject, it has an object. Yeah. Even if we don't really remember, or we could say, yeah, we don't know exactly what was the object of that deep and deep sleep state of mind, yeah. But still, there can be something like a vacuum, yeah. Okay, very good. So we will speak about that slowly. Fantastic. So here you know that mind and consciousness and mental. So those are arbitrary ways to translate those, yeah. But if you know the meaning or if you know the definition, that's okay, yeah. Or if you know the terms in Sanskrit or Tibetan, it's a bit easier. Yeah? Okay, so mind, consciousness, and mental are equivalent. Okay, so consciousness and mental are equivalent. Yeah. Okay, very good. Okay, let's start to play. Well, I guess you don't know the difference between the two, mental and mental consciousness. Oh, what shall we say for the very first answer?
Reason not established.
Yes, exactly. The reason is not established. Fantastic. Then you save time. You have time to reflect. Okay, then it follows that you know the difference between the two, mental and mental consciousness. You can say, I accept, or yeah, I know. Okay, was it? So then you have to check if you can find some common base. It's something which is A but not B, B not A, and none of them, yeah? Then you know if it's contradictory, equivalent, 3P or 4P.
Sorry, I'm going to ask a basic question because we talked about mental factor, we talked about consciousness, but we didn't talk about mental consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, we have, 6 types of consciousnesses. Yeah,
And
we
one of
have,
them is mental consciousness. Okay.
yes, exactly.
So that's what we're talking about here, manas and mental consciousness, which is vijnana.
it could be Mano Vijnana, yeah? Mano Vijnana.
Manovidya.
Yes, exactly. So if you remember well, mental just means consciousness or main consciousness, yeah?
Okay, 3P.
3P for Chavila. It sounds very good, but maybe you have some other types of answers.
Equivalent for me.
Ah, equivalent for Palavila. Then who else? Ah, we have more members. We have also Alicia, Royla, Apollina, many people. Okay. So who would enter in the club, in Chaviji's club? 3P or Palaviji's club? Contradictory. So if you remember well, mental means consciousness. Yeah, the consciousness, the main consciousness. Yeah. And mental consciousness is the sixth consciousness. So
Christopher, this is between mental and mental consciousness, right? Comparison?
exactly, yes.
Okay.
I think compassion would be the common base.
Okay, compassion for Siddhamamula would be the common base. So it would follow that they are not contradictory, yeah?
Except
Okay, okay. So but still compassion, it's a good example for clear and knowing. But here, if we compare mental consciousness, which is a main mind, and mental, which means main mind, then can it be compassion? Yeah, compassion is a mental factor. And if it is a mental factor, can it be a main mind?
yes, like
Ah,
some virtues and afflictions, they can be main mind.
okay, okay, okay. So, yeah, usually speaking, we could say, of course, that's not a very comprehensive definition. We could say that the definition of a main mind is a mind or a knower that is in the retinue of a mental factor that is uh, um, accompanied by a mental factor. And the definition of a mental factor would be that which accompanies a main mind.
Okay.
Yeah, main mind and mental factor usually are contradictory.
Okay.
Yeah, so if compassion is a mental factor, it cannot be a mental consciousness, and it cannot be a mental as well. Yeah, okay. So it's not easy, yeah? Anavina?
Is mental always conceptual? Just to ask before I say.
It can be.
It can be conceptual or valid cognition.
Yes, it can be. Not necessarily. Yeah, but even a mental factor can be a valid cognition.
I see.
Because cognition means awareness, that which is clear knowing. So, like for instance, if we have an I consciousness which is valid, for instance, yeah, the mental factor feeling, which is in the retinue of that I consciousness, is also a valid cognition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought it was equivalent And if I wanted to say A and B, I mean both mental and mental consciousness, I was thinking cognition of object of knowledge, which could be valid or invalid. Now, that's what I was wondering, whether I should say valid cognition of object of knowledge or not valid. It's okay. It's conceptual.
Because if we say cognition, if you remember well, cognition and awareness are equivalent, yeah? And awareness is the broadest category. So it could be also a mental factor.
Oh, cognition can be a mental factor?
Yes, because a mental factor is clear and knowing. So it is a cognition, it is an awareness, and it is a knower. Yeah, knower, cognition, awareness are equivalent. Lo, Ripa, Sheva are equivalent. Yeah,
we
we
said
slowly try
okay.
to decipher that. Yeah. Yeah. So what could be the common base between the two, mental and mental consciousness, for instance?
Can we say mental consciousness?
Yes, we could say, yeah, it's not wrong. It's perfectly correct. It's not really, no, how do you say, precise, but it's okay. It's correct. If we say it's a mental consciousness, okay, it follows that the subject mental consciousness is a mental consciousness. That's correct, yeah. And if we ask why, then it follows that the subject mental consciousness is a mental consciousness because it is a mental consciousness. So that's not totally wrong, yeah. But if we speak about something very specific, yeah, what could be a kind of mental consciousness? Like for instance, yeah.
Thoughts.
Thoughts, yes, thoughts. Yes, we could say conceptual consciousness, no? Yeah, something like this. Okay. So if we say a main mind which thinks about a flower,
Okay.
yeah, a main mind which thinks about a flower, yeah, it's necessarily a mental consciousness.
Yes.
It follows it is a mental consciousness, and it is a mental consciousness because
Because it is a thought.
Yeah, yeah, and other answers are ready to be given.
Because it is not the other 5 types of consciousness, that is I, sound, and so forth.
Okay. So because it is a thought, yeah, because it is a thought consciousness, yeah. Okay, and because it is a consciousness which is not sensory, yeah, we could say like this, yeah. If it is a consciousness which is not a sensory consciousness, it's necessarily the other one, yeah, the mental consciousness.
But
Everybody agrees?
when I said cognition of an object of knowledge, I was thinking like, let's say the flower is the object of knowledge and I have to conceive it, like I have to think, cognize it. Even if this I consciousness sees it, if the mental factor is not there or mental consciousness is not there, I cannot cognize an object of knowledge without a mental consciousness, no?
Ah, okay. Yeah, some would say so. Like for instance, Sakya Pandita would say so. Yeah, he would say that direct perception doesn't know its object. Yeah, the mental consciousness would know the what apprehends the sense consciousness. Yeah. But the way we tend to interpret that in the Gelugpa school, we could say that the direct perception is knowing its subject, knows its subject, can be a valid cognition. Yeah. And for Sakya Pandita, it's not the case. Yeah. It would say that the direct perception is a kind of blind. Yeah. Is a kind of, what do you say? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the sensory consciousness, yeah, is kind of yeah, is kind of how do you say? Yeah, doesn't know its subject. It is able to speak. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm sorry, Sakya Pandita is from a different school?
Yes, in the Sakya tradition, yeah. The
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's the you can find some kind of details in recognizing reality. Yeah, Sakya Pandita would say that the sensory consciousness is a bit dumb, but is able to see.
Yeah. It's like it takes in data, but it cannot interpret the data.
Yes, in one sense, it's like this. Yeah, yeah. He
But
says,
Galen School says it's
yeah,
valid because yeah, the data is correct, but it has no idea what it's saying.
yes, yes. In the Gelug Pascal, we will not say like this. Yes, Sakya Pandita would say that the sensory consciousness is Pupa Michenda. Pupa Michenda is like very dumb, but has eyes. Yeah. And the thought consciousness is Loa Maketa. He is blind, but is very able to speak. And both need to cooperate in order to know things. Yeah. So that's a kind of specific way to interpret the epistemology. But we could say, usually speaking, the Gelug-Pascal, an eye consciousness can be a valid cognition, can know perfectly its object, yeah, can ascertain its object, can determine its object, yeah. Okay, so we will try to have some debates about that, yeah. Slowly, slowly. I don't want to scare you. So now we have a main mind which thinks about a flower, yeah. It's a main mind, so it's one of the 6 consciousnesses, yeah. Okay, okay, very good. And because it thinks, it's necessarily not sensory. Yes. So it's necessarily a mental consciousness because it is a thought consciousness. Yeah? Is that okay for everyone? Yeah. Okay. And because it is a main mind, it is a mental. Yeah, it is manas. Yeah. Yi in Tibetan. Yeah. Okay, very good. So it follows it is both. So now, could we have a mental which is not a mental consciousness?
Eye
We could say,
consciousness.
yes, yes, eye consciousness, yeah, a main mind which sees the flower. Yeah. Oh, it's another way to speak, like Chavila said, an eye consciousness. Yeah. An eye consciousness is necessarily one of the 6 types of consciousness. Yeah. And it follows that the eye consciousness which sees a flower is necessarily not a mental consciousness.
Accept.
Yes. Okay, very good. Okay, so we will learn slowly the definitions of sensory consciousness, mental consciousness, and so on. Yeah? So we could give the definition of a mental consciousness, yeah, in order to be sure that it's not a mental consciousness. Yeah, yeah, it is not lower, which is produced independence of its own uncommon impairing condition, which is a mental faculty, mental sense power. Yeah? Okay, very good. So it follows that you can posit a mental consciousness which is not a mental. So for some people said 3, it's not possible. Yeah, if it yeah, if you say 3, it's not possible. Yeah, 3
Yes.
possibilities. Yeah, if you say if someone would have said 4 possibilities, then it follows that we can posit a mental consciousness which is not a consciousness. Yeah. Or a mental consciousness which is not a mental. Yeah, it's not possible. Very good. Yes, it's not possible. Yeah, it follows that if it is a mental consciousness, it's necessarily a mental.
Accept.
Yeah, very good. It is necessarily a mental
Because it is one of the possibilities of a main mind.
Yes, exactly, because it's necessarily a main mind. Yes, exactly. And mental means main mind, yeah? Main mind. Okay, or main consciousness, yeah? Very good. Okay. So, it follows that you can posit something which is none of them, mental and mental consciousness. That's easy, yeah?
Mental factors.
Yeah. Yes, the overall mental factors. Yes. I put on the first place a table, which is much more easier. The table is not a mental and it's not a mental consciousness. Yeah, everybody agrees. Yeah. Okay. And yes, a mental factor, for instance, the pleasant feeling in the retinue of an eye consciousness, which is a flower. Yeah, we could say compassion. Yes. Okay. Okay, that's it follows it is a mental factor.
Well, compassion is a mental, oh, it's a mental factor.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay. Yes, it is not a mental consciousness.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because the the mental factor feeling, yeah, it's necessarily not a main mind.
So
Yeah.
why?
Okay. Yeah. It's necessarily not a main mind because you have the broadest category awareness, yes, that which is clear and knowing. And among awareness, you have main minds and mental factors. And both are necessarily contradictory. A mental,
However, the pleasant feeling in the retinue of an eye consciousness, which is the flower, is experienced in the eye consciousness.
yes, exactly. But it's not the eye consciousness itself.
But it doesn't occur anywhere outside of the eye consciousness.
Exactly. That's why it is the same substance with the eye consciousness. It is the same entity or the same substance with the eye consciousness, but still both are contradictory. Yeah? Like the red color of the cup and the cup, they are one substance because they appear to the same direct perception and they don't appear separately. Still, the color of the cup is not the cup and the cup is not its color. Yeah.
So the clear knowing awareness is also, let's say, in fear, experiencing fear,
Yeah.
and is diluted, no longer clear. So how can clear knowing be not clear at the same time?
Hmm. Yeah, so that's why we have to interpret what means clear. Clear can mean many things. Yeah, it can mean not material. Yeah, clear, unknowing. Yeah, the mind is not material. Yeah, it can mean without any obstruction. Yeah, without any obstructive contact. It can mean sometimes, in some cases, empty. Yeah, like, yeah, clear light. When we say clear light, yeah, it can mean empty. Yeah, clear. So there are different meanings of that. Yeah, but usually speaking, yeah, immaterial can mean clear. Yeah, like in one definition, like given in Drepung Gomong of the mind, they would say benme, not material. Yeah, that which is knowing and not material. So that's why benme or not matter can mean clear as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
What about mind of enlightenment? Where does it fall?
Ah, that's a good question. Yeah, most of the masters would say it's a main mind. Yeah. So there are some issues with that because they would say that great compassion is the substantial cause of bodhicitta, yeah, or mind of enlightenment. But still, great compassion is a mental factor. So how can it be the substantial cause of a main mind? Oh, good question. Difficult answer. Yeah, because the substantial cause is the entity of the cause which transforms into the entity of the effect. Yeah? So if we say that create compassion, which is a mental factor, transforms into a main mind, which is bodhicitta, then a mental factor could transform into a main mind. That would be difficult to accept. Yeah? Yes. Okay. Okay, but the Prasangika would give another definition of substantial cause. That's why they would be they would be okay with that. Okay, very good. So if we say the pleasant feeling in the retinue of an eye consciousness which sees a flower, then that pleasant feeling is a mental factor. So it cannot be a mental. It cannot be a mental consciousness. Yeah, it's an awareness because it's clear and knowing. It's a mental factor. But it's not that kind of awareness which is a main mind. Yeah, is that okay for everyone? We could have said as well, you know, in the end of mind in Tibetan Buddhism, Latin Rinpoche says there are four possibilities, yeah, between mental and mental awareness. But he says literally in English, mental consciousness. But we could say between yi and yi shepa in Tibetan, there are four possibilities, yeah? Because in this case, we include the mental factors. But that's another point, yeah? I don't want to make it too much confusing. But here, if we say mental consciousness, it's a main mind, and mental is any kind of main mind as well, yeah? So here, if we say something which is none of them, it's necessarily not a main mind. So it can be a non-existent, it can be permanent, it can be form, it can be an NACP. And if it's an awareness, it has to be a mental factor. You could even say the mental factor feeling, which is in the retinue of the mental consciousness, which remembers the flowers, for instance. Yeah. The pleasant feeling, I don't know if I wrote that. Yes, I wrote that. The pleasant feeling in the retinue of a mental consciousness which thinks about the flower. Yeah, that's a mental factor, which is one substance with the mental consciousness, but is not the mental consciousness. Yeah, does it work? Not easy, yeah? Yeah, because we speak about that.
Factor is also not the mental consciousness.
Yeah, sorry, Charity.
Mental factor and mental consciousness are also contradictory.
Yes, exactly. Very good. Yes, we can even say.
Be the neither of the two, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We could even say mental factor and mental are contradictory because mental means a main mind.
Hmm.
Yeah. Does it work?
And also, whatever is a mental factor, it's necessarily contradictory with main mind. Or whatever
Yes,
is a mind. Even the
yeah,
instances are contradictory.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yes. If it is a mental factor, it's necessarily not a mental or main mind. Yeah, and if it is a main mind, it cannot be a mental factor. Yeah. Wow.
But
So the
sometimes I've heard, sorry, sometimes I've heard that compassion is a mind, this line somewhere.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that is wrong.
So it's a way to translate that. Yeah, they would say it's a mind if we divide impermanent phenomena among form, consciousness, or mind in a general way, in a loose sense, and NACP. So because compassion is impermanent, it is not form, it is not an NACP. Still, it is a mind. It is in the nature of mind, in the sense of it is an awareness. Yeah, it's not wrong. It's just like in some translations, they would say mind for awareness. But awareness is broader than mind. Sometimes we use consciousness and awareness like in the same way. Yeah, like we say that, for instance, the definition of an NACP is an impermanent phenomenon which is not form and not consciousness. But in one sense, we should say which is not form and not awareness, because it's broader. Awareness is broader. Sheba in Tibetan is broader than Namshe. Yeah. Okay, when we say consciousness, usually speaking, or mind, consciousness, and mental, usually speaking, they refer to a main mind. Yeah. But in some cases, when we speak about mind, we just want to speak about something which is clear and knowing. So it's a loose way, a loose sense to speak about awareness. Yeah. Okay, very cool.
Can
So here,
we?
yeah.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yes.
Awareness and mind, can we say this is a 3P as well?
Yes, exactly. Yes, because mind, if it is mind, it's necessarily an awareness. Yeah, because it is clear knowing. Yeah. But if it is an awareness, it's not necessarily mind because
Because it could be consciousness or mental,
yeah.
right? I mean, there are other
So
categories.
so here we will see that mind means main mind. Yeah. Yeah. But not in all translations. Yeah, sometimes they just speak about mind in a way to speak about awareness. Yeah, so that's why we have to be careful when we read texts. Yeah, okay. Sometimes we are as the readers, we need to interpret what they mean. Yeah, okay. Main mind. Okay, yeah. Palavila.
In mind, so we had first initially you started with awareness has mind, consciousness, and mental.
Yes.
Then when we're talking about mind, are we talking about mind or mental?
Yeah, when we speak about mind or main mind, it's equivalent, usually speaking. Yeah, main mind or mind. Yeah. Okay.
Is
And when
that
we speak
chitta?
chitta, yeah, exactly, yeah, chitta. And when we speak about main consciousness, that's the same. It's equivalent, yeah, vijnana. And consciousness can refer to mental. Yeah, mental is much rare in the texts. Yeah, usually we speak about consciousness or mind. Yeah, okay. But in the
But when we talk about mental, see, mental
yeah.
factors, is it belonging to the mental or is it mental factors are coming up in chitta mind?
Yeah, mental factors are necessarily not mind. They are necessarily an awareness because they are clear knowing, but they are not mind. They are not a main mind.
Will they be in manas? In mental?
Yeah, they are not because mental and mental or manas and chitta are equivalent. Yeah. So because the mental factors or chetasika are necessarily not chitta. The
Okay.
mental factors are necessarily not main minds.
Okay.
Very good. So in the mental, we have the mental consciousness. Yeah, mental consciousness. If it's a mental consciousness, it's necessarily a mental. Yeah, because it's a main mind. Yeah. But what could be a mental which is not a mental consciousness? We just said that before.
Sense consciousness.
Yes, exactly. Sensory consciousness or sense consciousness. Yeah, I should write sense consciousness. Yeah, it's easier. Sense consciousness. Yeah, it follows that sense consciousness is necessarily a mental.
Accept.
Yes. Okay. But it's necessarily not a mental consciousness.
Accept.
Yes, very good. Okay. So we have the two main categories, the two main divisions of mental or main minds. We have the 5 sense consciousnesses and 1 mental consciousness. Yeah. Okay. So what could be something which is none of them? We said that before. Yeah, which
Any
is,
example table?
yes, any form like table, exactly. And if we ask, okay, what is an awareness which is necessarily not a mental or necessarily not a mental consciousness?
Mental factor.
Yes, exactly. Fantastic. So here you have the broadest map. Yeah. So awareness, it's the broadest category. Yeah, it's clear and knowing. And among that, you have mental factors and main minds. Yeah. And the main minds, in turn, are divided into, we could say 6, but we could say also as well 2. Yeah, mental main minds and sense main minds. Yeah, is that clear for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. Yeah, that's the banana day. Fantastic. Okay, so those points are not so easy at first glance, but usually speaking, if we train a little bit with that, that should mean that should not be so difficult. Yeah. So okay, so we could say, okay, it follows that the subject compassion is necessarily an awareness.
Accept.
Okay, it is an awareness because.
Because it is a mental factor.
Yes, exactly. And it follows that if it is a mental factor, it's necessarily an awareness.
Accept.
Yes, because it is clear knowing. Okay. And it follows that compassion is necessarily not a mental consciousness.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, it follows that the subject compassion is necessarily not a mental consciousness.
Accept.
Yes, it is not because.
Because it is a mental factor and
Yes.
main mind.
Yes, it follows that if it is a mental factor, it's necessarily not a main mind.
Accept.
Yes, very good. Yeah, it's like, you know, the color of the cup, it follows it is form.
The color is form. Accept.
Yeah. And it follows that the subject, the cup, is form as well.
Accept.
Still, the cup, which is form, and the color of the cup, which is form, are contradictory.
Okay.
Yeah. So the mental factor compassion and the mental consciousness, yeah, within which there is compassion, they are necessarily awarenesses, but they are still contradictory. Yeah, does it work?
What would be
Yeah,
an example of a mental consciousness? Yeah, what would be an example of a mental consciousness then?
yeah, mental consciousness can be like any main mind which remembers something, for instance. Yeah, you can have a main mind which has a direct yogic perception. Yeah, or main mind which is clairvoyant, or main mind which is analyzing emptiness and so on.
Memory also, right?
Yes, the memory. Yeah, the main mind which has a memory, because the memory can be also each time you have a main mind, and whatever does that main mind, all the factors, mental factors which are in its retinue are doing that as well. Like for instance, if you have a main mind which is conceptual, then the mental factor intention, the mental factor attention, the mental factor contact and the feeling and so on, they are conceptual cognitions as well. Yeah. Okay. So if you have, for instance, a yogic direct perception, your yogic direct perception, the main mind, which is your yogic direct perception, necessarily has the 5 mental omnipresent factors. Yeah, and also some others, yeah, like the object ascertaining mental factors and so on. Yeah, so all those mental factors also are yogic direct perceptions.
Non-conceptual.
Yes, and those,
Oh,
yes, they are yogic direct perceptions, but they are not main minds. They are not the mental consciousness itself. Yeah, we can say a direct perception can be a main mind and can be a mental factor as well. Like His Holiness would say in one text, like samsara, nirvana, and Buddha nature. Yeah, he explains the afflictions. Yeah? He would say that the grasping at a self and the ignorance grasping at a self are very different. The ignorance grasping at a self is necessarily a mental factor, the mental factor ignorance. Yeah? But the grasping at a self can be the main mind as well. Can be the mental factor feeling as well, which is in the retinue of that mind. Sorry. I'm sorry for that.
no, it's just, yeah, it's quite difficult to wrap our mind around this, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we can say that when we speak about, for instance, yeah, next time we try to dive into direct perception. Yeah? So when we speak about direct perception, it can be a main mind, but it can be a mental factor as well. Yeah, the mental factor of feeling, which is in the retinue of the eye consciousness, which is a direct perception, then that mental factor of feeling is direct perception as well. Yeah. Wow. I'm sorry for the confusion. But
I think I need to revise the mind and mental factors, then maybe I'll catch up. Sorry.
yeah, I didn't want to enter so much in the mental factors now because it can be you know, a main one of the main divisions into two of the awarenesses. Yeah. Yeah, you can have an awareness which can be a main mind, or an awareness which can be a mental factor. Yeah? So that's one main division. You can have conceptual consciousness and non-conceptual consciousness. You can have a valid cognition and a cognition which is not valid, and so on. Yeah? So there are many different ways to divide mind or consciousness or awareness in the broadest way. Yeah. So don't be too much afraid about what we said today. It's just because sometimes I'm running a bit ahead. I don't want to go in the final page of the book already. But next time we try just to recap a little bit what we've said today, and also the objects. Yeah, because we have to know at least the main divisions of the objects, yeah? The appearing object and the object of engagement. If we know that, it's a bit easier for us to understand the distinction between mistaken awareness and non-mistaken awareness. Yeah? And wrong awareness or wrong cognition and not wrong cognition. Yeah? So we will know that slowly, and debate with that slowly. Step by step. Yeah. Remember what the Bodhisattva Shantideva said, yeah, there is nothing which doesn't become easier with training, slowly. Yeah, at the beginning, yeah, it's always like this. Yeah, we remember what does it say? And slowly remember, yeah, all the good job, yeah, that you did during the last season, yeah, with the topics, yeah, like instances and generalities and so on. In the beginning, it's always a bit, you know, difficult, but now you know perfectly that. Yeah. Okay, so I try to encourage you to follow up.
I have a
Maybe
short
we did.
question.
Yes, please.
Because you said, sorry, I was late. The divisions that you mentioned, they are exhaustive divisions. So if it is an awareness, it's necessarily a mental factor or a main mind. It cannot
Yes,
be
exactly.
an awareness that is neither mental factor nor a main mind.
Yeah. Yes, but there are some, you know, some debates about that. Like, for instance, Kunkian Jamyang Sheba and Rebungomon would say it follows that the subject awareness itself is a mental factor or main mind.
But apart from that,
Apart from that, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're perfectly
yeah.
right. It's an exhaustive division. Yeah,
And also the other one, so it's either valid or non-valid.
exactly. Yeah,
And
yes.
it's either, what was it? It's either
Conceptual.
direct perception or conceptual.
Yes, yes. We could say, yeah, for Yonzin Podwochok, if it's a direct perception, it's not necessarily, you know, an exhaustive division, or we could say if it's an awareness, it's not necessarily direct perception or conceptual cognition. Yeah, because for Yonzin Podwochok, direct perception doesn't mean a mind which is not conceptual. It means a mind which is free from conceptualization and non-mistaken.
Like,
Then what would be something that is not conceptual and not a direct?
Yes, a mistaken eye consciousness. Yeah, when we see a mirage. Yeah, for Vener Gendabdul, the eye consciousness is a direct perception. It's not a valid direct perception. But for Yongzin Purbuchok, it's not even a direct perception. It's a non-conceptual mistaken consciousness or non-conceptual wrong consciousness. Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So
uh,
that, yeah, please.
yeah, likewise, like, phenomena is permanent and impermanent, but phenomena per se is permanent. So,
Yes.
like awareness, awareness is divided into mental factor and main mind.
Yeah.
But do we have an answer to that? What is awareness? Like phenomena is permanent. That the answer we know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we know for phenomena, yeah, phenomenon is permanent because if it exists, it is permanent or impermanent. And phenomenon is, or phenomena, the generality phenomena is permanent. Yeah. But for awareness itself, it's very difficult. Yeah, like that. Munkian Jaman Sheba would say, like for instance, okay, if it is a valid cognition, it is either direct valid cognition or a conceptual valid cognition. But what about valid cognition itself? It is none of them. Yeah, so that's very difficult. Yeah, very difficult. But still, we could have found a kind of debate like this. Like, for instance, if it is form, it has to be external form or internal form. Yeah. But what about form itself? Yeah. Yeah, is it external or internal? So that's very difficult, yeah. So you have to choose your answer and you have to defend that against very difficult challenges. You have to choose one answer. But I'm not sure I would have it now.
But if it is awareness, it's necessarily impermanent.
Yes,
Yes, yeah.
yes, I accept. Yes, it can be eternal, but it is still impermanent. Yeah? Wow, fantastic. Okay, thank you so much for your enthusiasm. And then we can dedicate as usual here. And we can meet next time on Monday and try to debate if you wish. I will be available and just to watch, just to spy on you. Thank you. See you next time. With great pleasure. Yeah. Bye-bye. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
Bye.